So I'm back at the 70 C10 today. I'm getting ready to do a radiator swap, heater core, water pump, everything, the whole coolant system, because it's pretty old and it's the antifreeze in there is really old and brown. So I'm just going to flush the whole thing out. So it's a little how-to. It's not very difficult, but it's more or less the little video diary of everything we're doing to the truck. So I want to go through everything that I'm doing and all the steps to take to change all that out. Recently I went and changed out all my hoses, my two heater core hoses, the bottom radiator hose and the top radiator hose. I changed out the thermostat because you're in here, you're doing all that stuff, and what's $10 more to throw a brand new thermostat in there once you've got all the parts. I'm sure you all know when you start tearing this stuff apart, you might as well just do everything all at once. So we're going to take the heater core out, and normally that's a big job because you have to remove that whole box and then the box from inside underneath the dash. I'm going to upgrade to vintage air like I did with the 89 Blazer, so that whole box is going to go away. But it's probably going to be 2-3 months before that vintage air thing gets delivered. So I want this to work now, and I want to make sure that I've got a cooling system that's working properly. So I watched some other YouTube videos and I tried to find out what other people were doing, because the heater core box so as you can see, that heater core box, this whole thing including the fan has got to come out, and there's bolts down underneath here. So your probably best bet would be, if you don't want to destroy this and you want to put it back, is to take this fender rail out. And this being an old Iowa farm truck, it is rusted all to hell, so I'm not really super excited about trying to take that out. Plus, I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to take it out, I'm going to toss it. So I watched one video where a guy literally just, this front panel here, he literally just cut this out like a little cutting wheel. There's 2 screws here and here, and then 2 on the bottom that hold it in with its brace or its brackets. You have to undo those, and then he literally just took this out and then put it back on and like put like some sealing around, like can't talk, rubber sealant around it, and put like a bolt in here with a wing nut to hold that on and keep it from falling off, so he could change this out next time even easier. I'm not worried about that, but I'm going to do the same thing because I really don't feel like taking the whole thing apart. I want this to work for a while. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to cut this front piece off, and I'm going to take the heater core straight out of here, and then put the new one back in, and put this back on, and probably just put some epoxy or something like that on there just to keep it on there for the next couple months until I get ready to put the vintage air in. So we're gonna have to drain all the coolant, and the coolant in here is pretty nasty. I already tried draining the radiator and flushing it out, and it literally was, the drain plug was full of mud and gunk, and it just wasn't even draining. I had to scrape it out with a screwdriver to get it to come out, and I wish I would have videoed that because that was pretty interesting. So we're gonna drain the radiator. I'm gonna cut this out. I'm gonna replace that heater core box, or heater core, put that back in there. I'm going to swap out the radiator because this is a really thin, like, I don't know if it's like a single core or double core, but it's probably willing to bet that it's the original radiator to this truck. So it's super thin. I plan on driving this in the summer a little bit when it gets really hot here in Phoenix, but also I plan on doing a V8 swap to an automatic sometime in the future, although it's probably going to be a ways down the road. I want something that's compatible. So Summit set me up with its like SUM 382006 that's going to work now, and then will work when I do that swap, because I really don't want to throw out a whole bunch more money to swap out a radiator and then have to swap it again. So we're going to get on that. We're going to drain all our antifreeze and bottle that up so we're not draining it all into the ground. So we're going to get on that. So the radiator's out. I've got all my hoses off and drained the coolant as best I could, and I'll show you here in a second. It's pretty brown. So next we're going to take the fan, this pulley off, and I already loosened the belt a little bit from the alternator. So the water pump is right here, and it only has these 2 connections. So what I'm going to do is, next I'm going to get the hose out, and I'm going to spray water. I'm going to guess is going in here, because this comes from the bottom. This comes from the bottom of the heater core, because it drains down from what I remember. It comes in here, and then this is spinning clockwise if you're facing this way, so it means it should be spitting it out here, and then that goes to the bottom of the radiator. So I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to work, so we're going to give that a shot here in a little bit. So I can show you a little bit closer up here. That's the heater box. This whole thing is going to have to come out, and there's, like I said, there's bolts down in there. This thing is already pretty beat up, and I'm sure it's probably original too, but it's not even sealing well there because it's all smashed up. So I'm just going to cut it around here, take out those 4 screws, take off this front plate, and then put the new one in, because this one is full of sludge, and when I flushed it, it was just coming out brown, just as brown as the water in the radiator. So we're going to flush out the coolant that's in the engine, because I'm sure it's probably nasty and brown too. You can see the antifreeze that came out. It's like this rusty brown color. Like this one here is like literally brown. So I'm gonna pause it again and try and get this engine flushed out of all of its coolant, and then I'm gonna take all this off the rest of the way and be back. I went down here while the engine was running and was spraying water in here, and I kept getting brown water. I mean, you can still tell it's kind of brown coming out of there. Get up real close there. That's not green, and there was some coming out of here. So they say just cleaned this, sprayed it and sprayed it and sprayed it and sprayed it, and it never did come clean. So it's probably just been years and years and years that it's been without being flushed properly. So I'm going to put the new radiator in, I'm going to fill it all up, I'm going to change out the heater core, and then we're just going to run it for a while and change out the antifreeze and hope it breaks up any of the crud that's still sitting inside the engine. Hopefully it cleans all that out. Now it's time for the heater core box. I'm going to get that cut out, get that part swapped out, and get that in there and get that ready to go. I'm guessing those are probably, I bet you those are 5/8. I'm hoping they're 5/8. Yep, they're 5/8. So I'm gonna have to take all 4 of those off. But I think I'll probably cut it first, just so I don't have to worry about it bouncing around. I've got the heater core box cut out, so I'm gonna remove this, and it's kind of a dusty job, so make sure you got a respirator on of some kind. But we're gonna get this thing swapped out. Get the new one in. I'm sorry for all you purists that probably are screaming about me cutting that thing open, but I'm gonna throw it away eventually anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. All right, 4 bolts are undone. That bottom one back in here, it's pretty difficult to get to. You can see this is, yeah, I guess Harrison was the original. That's what they used in the past. And this is full of all kinds of crud and dirt and dust and mouse nests. I'll get those out here. The problem with the new radiators, these old ones, this clamp like goes around this part of the tank like this. And then those 2, oh, no, like this. Like this. And it holds those 2 screws, and those screws are far enough away from the tank that you're not going to have to worry about that screw going into the tank and piercing that, because that's going to be a problem, obviously. And there's the other bracket up there. A lot of people were taking these brackets and they were modifying them or making them longer. I don't have a welder or anything like that, and I'm not really too worried about it. I'm just going to put it back in and ride the wave for a couple months. But these are the brackets that those screws were going into. You can see those holes there on each side. So So I'll show you for comparison. Again, this is the original Harrison radiator. And everybody, all the YouTube videos that I watch, everybody's saying the same thing. This is the replacement. And as you can see, these tanks are about the same length from left to right there, but obviously the thickness is different, so you're not really going to be able to screw those in and hold them in place. I guess it's kind of up to you how you want to do this or how you plan on fixing yours, but this is what I'm going to have to do. I'm just going to have to stick mine in there. And remember, the big one goes on top, the little one goes on the bottom. Probably better get a knife so I don't damage this thing while I cut it open. But I'm going to clean out the box, get this one stuck in there and try to secure it some way. Maybe I can use those brackets and like put one on just the front ones just to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't go anywhere. It comes with a little foam strip. I'm not quite sure where that goes. I think it might go along in there inside the blend door. But it's Phoenix. I'm not too worried about heat for that long. I just want to keep the engine running properly so it doesn't overheat. I just want to get this thing in and get it to a point where it can at least hold the tank in place so it's not rattling around there too bad. I'm not driving a long distance with this thing. It's got like a little curve in there, and that curve is supposed to go like this along that tube, so it keeps it from bending, or it keeps it from bending that tube. Let's try this one. Yeah, it'll kind of go around the one. I might have to bend it and see if I can't get it, at least the 2 screws. Maybe just cut this off here somewhere, so I've got just this L-shaped bracket to hold this in place. I'm not going to be able to bend this, and it's not long enough to get around there. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to vacuum all this out. Let's just see exactly what I've got in there. Sounds like 53 years worth of mouse nests. Pulled a huge one out of the, oh Jesus Christ, look at that. Oh my God, that is amazing. That is crazy. I pulled a huge mouse nest out of the fan when I swapped the fan motor out. It was nasty. Oh my God, it was so nasty. But I think we got everything. This is the new heater cord that I'm replacing. Remember these brackets we were looking at? I cut off the ends a little bit shorter, and I made this area right here, made that a little bit longer, so it's still gonna fit in there and can move around a little bit, but this is also gonna kind of hold it against there with a little bit of pressure. So I'm doing that on the one for the top and the bottom. Remember that top one's the bigger one. So I'm gonna do that for both and get that set in there and make sure that's working. So that'll be a temporary fix until we get our vintage air. All right, now we're taking on the water pump. Everything else has been 1/2 inch, so I'm guessing these are 1/2 inch as well. Looks like we got 2 on the right, 2 on the left, and then this one's connected to the bracket for the alternator. Might get a little bit more antifreeze coming out of here, but not really a whole lot to worry about. Out of here. You can save all your bolts too. Try and catch all that if we can. There we go. Still coming out pretty brown. But we got her out. 2 long bolts are going to be on the left, and 2 short bolts are going to be on the right. As you can tell, they're sitting a little bit closer to the engine block. This thing looks like it's working okay. I don't really hear any like grinding noise, but you know what? It's not worth even taking that chance. We're taking all this time and energy, and we're replacing everything else. It's almost kind of silly not to do this. So I'm still kind of waiting for the paint to dry on the water pump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably clean up some more stuff here. I think my GoPro died, but I'm going to try and put epoxy on the heater box where I taped it back up. Maybe clean some of this and maybe clean it up here. I've got so much gunk in this dampener. So much gunk. So I'm going to clean that up and get back. So I took some time to clean up the front of the motor here. And I know it doesn't look perfect, but it was coated with grease and grime. And as you can see, I just took a little paintbrush and the Chevy orange and just kind of touched up a few things here and there. I rattle canned the water pump and it's ready to go. I just put that on. I'm going to torque that down a little bit. I put the gasket on and the sealer. I painted my fan and the pulley, and they still need to dry, so I'm going to get them dried up. I put my epoxy on my heater box just to close it up, just to seal it, just for now, so it's temporary. Like I said, that's done. I'm going to torque up my bolts on the water pump, and then tomorrow put the pulley and the fan on there and mount the radiator in here. I already test fit it, and it sits in there real nice, and the brackets that go up here and up here that hold the old one on are going to hold the new one in as well. So that should be it. We'll get that tomorrow, get some antifreeze in this thing and burp all the air out, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to call it a day for now and get back to you tomorrow. So this next day, I've got everything ready for the radiator to go in. I just wanted to get everything in here kind of buttoned up a little bit. I did some touch-up painting on the block there where I could. So radiator's going to go in next. We can start filling that up, and then I'll get my pulley and fan on there while we're connecting all that stuff. So that's going to be next. We can get the radiator in here, start filling them with some fluid. So I got ahead of myself and I just put the radiator in, and I realized there's not enough clearance to get the bolts in, because they're like 4-inch bolts, so they got to go all the way in here. Two on the opposite sides here started. Okay, fan's on. Now we put the radiator back in. Hopefully not spill a whole bunch of radiator flow or antifreeze. Bend this one down a little bit, see if I can't get it to fit a little bit better. Keep that from wobbling, because this side's holding it pretty tight. So bit better, but that's what we're gonna do. Go with for now. Let's get this hose back on. Okay. Hoses are all back on together. On too. And this one's going to go from the top of the heater core to the water pump. This one's a little bit small. It's a little hard to get on the neck of this water pump. So that was the 1.5 gallons. I don't remember what the full capacity is, but we'll just keep filling her up and we'll run the engine until we burp all the air out of it. And that's technically what this thing's for, but I'm just using it as a funnel to fill. Yeah, I'm sure it needs to have the engine run and get this stuff working through its system. So it's not really draining, it's giving me a couple big air bubbles. So while that's working, I'm going to work on the engine, or the fan. So I've got 2.5 gallons of antifreeze in there, and we're just running her right now to get it circulating. I'm probably going to need at least another gallon. You need to turn your heater on high to get the antifreeze flowing, get it through the heater core. Make sure you got it in all parts of your engine before you take off, and it overheats on you. So I'm going to let it run for a little bit more, and then I'm going to have to go get some more antifreeze. We're just right now checking for leaks, making sure we don't have any issues. And everything's looking good so far.